Praise the Lord, everyone. Good to see you in Sunday school today. It's time to get going. Glad to be at Gospel Tabernacle today. Had some pretty weather this past week, haven't we? I sure been thankful for that, and it cooled off a little bit. I really enjoyed it, and it's pretty outside again this morning. Makes you want to get out and do something. I'm glad we're in church today. Specifically, I'm glad I'm in this church today. I'm glad to see you all here. I'm looking for a great time in the Lord today. Let's go ahead and stand. Kids, we'll go ahead and let you go to your classes. I know you're ready to go. I know your parents are ready for you to go. Let's give our kids a big hand this morning. Got another good group of kids. Great group of kids. That's good. Got a few prayer requests that we need to make mention of this morning. Sister Flora Smith, continue to remember that request. Jeremy Gleibel, continue to remember him. Monte Smith, Charlotte Smith, Angela Davis family and their son Brian needs prayer today. I want us to remember John Marsh in our prayers. A lot of you know Mr. John out at Slugburger Cafe. He's still got a lot of health issues, and there's more issues than just his health. There's several things going on that involves his business there. That he needs some prayer. He needs prayer. Only the Lord can straighten that out. Only the Lord knows what to do and fix it, and he don't know which way to go, and I wouldn't know what to tell him to do, but the Lord can guide him through. And I want us to pray for Mr. John this morning. He's a great friend of a lot of ours in here, and think the world of him. So let's pray for Brother John this morning. Anyone else got a prayer request? Okay, let's remember Sister Gail's brother-in-law. Remember Sister Peggy too. Continue to remember her. Anyone else? Brother Chad? Okay, let's remember that. Lead man that works for Brother Chad. Anyone else? Let's remember our service throughout the day. I'm looking for a great time of the Lord. This is going to be a great service today, and I'm just glad to be here, but I want it to be what the Lord wants us to have. I want us to be right where the Lord wants us to be. So let's go to the Lord in prayer this morning. Brother Rogers, lead us again today. You may be seated. Ushers, come on and grab our Sunday school offering this morning. Have anything to give, go ahead and put your Sunday school offering in. The Lord's been good to us, hasn't he? I mean, he has really been good to us. The Lord's really been good to me. When I think about the goodness of the Lord and all he's done for me, my soul cries hallelujah. He's been thought just here a while back of nearly 62 years old, getting pretty close within the next few weeks. And seems like the Lord has been over backwards to bless me. He just seems like he's been extra good to me. And I'm thankful for that. Sometimes I think we're not thankful enough for what the Lord has blessed us with. But I'm very, very thankful. The Lord has kept his hand on us through the years. I want to talk to you today, a little subject. I didn't know who all was going to be here today, but the Lord knew who all was going to be here. He knew every one of y'all was going to be here. So evidently this is for us, okay? I don't think it's for the church down the street. I believe it's for us. And Brother Joey and I were talking this morning before church. Sometimes you work on your lesson all week and it gets about time to your lesson and He said he's had times where he'd work on it all week and scrap it on Thursday and start all over again. I've had those times too, Brother Joey. Seems like you just can't get locked in on anything, but I believe the Lord has given me this to talk to us about this morning. You know, the world celebrates a lot of highlights, especially in sports, and they celebrate the Super Bowl every year. That's a big thing in the world. It's a big thing if you follow sports. You don't necessarily have to be in the world if you just follow sports. Super Bowl is a big thing, and a lot of people have big Super Bowl parties and things around the Super Bowl. I don't know if you know who won last year, the Super Bowl. Any of y'all follow sports? Kansas City Chiefs won last year. I didn't know if any of y'all remembered their sports, but she remembered who won. Do y'all remember who they played? The 49ers. You're exactly right. I'm surprised you remember that. What I was getting at was most of the people, or a lot of the people will know who won, but very few people know who they beat. They don't know who the loser is. We're getting close to college football. Joey and I was talking last night. He said he didn't follow football. I love college football. And Alabama's always has been a dominant team the last few years in college football sports. And you may not know who they beat up on, but you know who won. Just about every time Alabama plays, you just about know who won. The point is you don't remember the ones that lost, usually. You just remember the winner. They have a Miss USA pageant every year, Miss Universe beauty pageant every year, and they always have a winner, and then they have a runner-up, an alternate 1 and a 2 and a 3. And most people never know who the number 1s and number 2s and number 3s are, but they can tell you who won most beautiful, or Miss Universe or Miss USA. There's just something about being the best that's where it's at. Even though there's a second best and a runner-up, somehow it just don't carry the clout and the accolades that being the best is. It just don't carry that. Second best was good, but just wasn't hardly good enough. I've tried to surround myself during my career with people that win, winners. I don't like to be around people that are losing all the time. I don't like the losing attitude people have when they're losers. And we grow up in a world that says we need to learn to be good losers. I've never been a good loser. I hadn't. I hate to lose at anything. I hate to lose. I want to be the best at it. If I can be the best, I want to be the best. And I know if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. And we were talking last week, Jason and I were talking, and he was talking about, he really likes sports a lot, so we have that in common and talk about it quite often. He was talking about playing lesser competition, people playing lesser competition. And I said, I never want to play somebody that's not as good as I am, because what that's going to do is bring your level down. You always want to compete against those that are above you or that can do better than you can, because that raises your level of competition up. You don't play down, you start playing up. And I've always tried to surround myself with people that were winners. People that are winners, they just think different. They have a different attitude. They operate different. They've got a different confidence about them. They don't know what all it's going to take to be the best, but they know whatever it takes is what they're going to do. We started the second leg of our company 8 years ago now, a little over 8 years maybe. And I met with my partner down South Mississippi, and we talked about a lot of different things that we had coming up, a lot of different things that was going to have to happen. There's a lot of moving parts in this thing, and we strategized and thought about it and worked on it and planned it out just about all day long. And it seemed like at the end of the day, we still wasn't settled in on everything like we should be settled in on. And I started back home, and I thought, you know, I don't know what all this is going to take that we're trying to put together here. This is going to be a monster wheel if it ever gets to turning. And I called him. I said, now, Chris, I don't know if we've got everything ironed out that it's going to take to get this rolling, but I'm going to tell you this. Whatever it takes, that's what I'm willing to give. Whatever how much it takes, the long hours, the extra work, whatever it takes, we're ready to go. So let's go in with this, not with the attitude like if this don't work, this is our plan B. There's no plan B. It's just plan A. It's got to work. We got to make it work. If you're going to be the best, it's going to require some dedication, some long hours, less sleep. When people are sitting in recliners, you're probably still going to be rolling. You're still going to be doing something. Because there's no better feeling than being the best. It requires patience, planning, strategy, adjusting, changes, accountability, all those things. It goes with being successful. It requires you getting back up when you've been knocked down over and over and over. Failing is part of it, but you don't stay down. You just get slapped down, you get back up. You like the little bouncing thing that's got the weight in the bottom that you put air in. You can slap it over and it'll hit the ground, but as soon as you turn around, it's done pop back up. That's the way we have to be. To be a winner, you've got to be the best. And not many people are willing to sacrifice to do that. They're just not. They're satisfied with being average or just being good. I've never been satisfied with just being good or average. I'm not satisfied with that. I say a lot of times in our meetings and things, sometimes we're like Grandma's biscuits. She forgot to put the self-rising flour in there. And they squatted to rise and never got out of the squat. That's the way a lot of people are. They talk big and they seem like they're going to fix and do big things and set the woods on fire. Actually, they never get the first match struck. They never get anything done. There's a little Aesop fable. Y'all remember those Aesop's fables? We used to read them when we were kids. I don't think they use them no more. Do y'all know who Aesop was? He was a Greek slave, is who he was. Old hunchback guy. If you ever saw a picture of him, he was about as ugly as they could be. He was one ugly dude, but he was smart. He was very smart. And he had this little fable. I'm getting somewhere this morning. He had this little fable that talked about the hare and the turtle. Do y'all remember that one? The hare was making fun of the tortoise one day and for being so slow. And the rabbit said, "Do you ever get anywhere?" And the turtle laughed, and he said, "Well, I'll get there sooner than you think." Well, the hare didn't believe him, and after all, the turtle had a large shell on his back. He had very short legs. He moved very slow, and the rabbit said, "Well, I'm twice as fast as you are." And to which the turtle challenged him to a race, if you remember that. Challenged a rabbit to a race, and the rabbit said, "This is going to be no contest. This won't be nothing to this." The turtle said, "I'm slow, but I'm steady. You're going to be surprised." The fox was asked to judge the race, and 1, 2, and 3, and the race was off. And the rabbit took off. Within a minute, he was out of sight. Couldn't hardly tell the old turtle had moved, just barely creeping forward. You've seen them little terrapins crawl on the ground. Just barely one little step at a time. And after a little while, the rabbit looks back and didn't see the turtle, and he said, "Well, ain't no use of me running this fast. I just well slow up. I got him beat. I left him in the dust. I don't even see him back there." So you know the story, how the rabbit decided I'm just going to sit down and rest a little while. The finish line is just right yonder. I can see the finish line. I'll just sit here by the finish line, and when the turtle starts getting close, I'll just jump up and hop across the finish line. That'll be over. But the rabbit went to sleep. And after a while, here come the old turtle, just creeping along. He was steady. He had to go through some thick spots, some rocks, and crawl over some places that the rabbit just jumped over and kept a trucking. But here come the turtle. He just kept plodding on until finally he went across the finish line, and that's when the rabbit woke up. And there the turtle was across the finish line. I'm telling you this morning, that the turtle had to overcome a lot of challenges to be the best. But he won. He won. Never listen to the naysayers. They don't see what you see. They're going to be at a slower, you may be at a slower pace, and you may take a lot of criticisms, you may take a lot of jokes, but we can make it. So today, here's what I want to talk to you about. No runner-up, winning at all cost. No runner-up, winning at all cost. We see this in the world to where winning, you don't win at all cost if you're in the world. You do your best to win, and may the best person win, most talented, the most ability, the most effort, whatever, will win, but you don't, from the world's perspective, you don't win at all cost. Because that means no matter what it takes, I'm going to win. That means if you get in a fight with somebody and you're losing, and there's a ball bat close by, you may pick up the ball bat and slam him in the head. That's what it means, winning at all costs. If there's a knife there, you may pick up that knife and actually slash somebody if you're wanting to win at all costs. Let me just tell you, in our race as a Christian, we have to win at all costs. We cannot afford to be runner-up. There is no runner-up in this race. We either win or we lose. We either get it or we don't get it. We either win the prize or it's over with. The Bible says the race is not to the swift. It's not to those that take off running like it's a quick marathon or a sprint. But this is a long race, and he that endureth until the end shall be saved. That's the reason I like the song I've been singing here lately, I'm going through. I'm going through. No matter what others do, I'll pay the price. Whatever it takes to go through, we've got to have a made-up mind. Can I remind you today that runner-up's not good enough? Second place is a loser. Being second is losing. The race is either we win or we lose everything. There's no pats on the back for effort. Hey, you know what? When we get there on Judgment Day, the Lord's not going to look at us and say, "Man, Keith, you had a hard life, man. I say you done the best you could with what you had. Just come on, slide on in. You done the best." There won't be none of that. Do you know we're going to all be judged by the same book? The same book. It's going to be laid beside your life just like it is mine. There's a book open, and then there's another book. That book that you're going to be judged by is the Bible. And you're going to be judged from the deeds that's done in this life. You know what they're going to judge it by? The Bible. The deeds you've done versus what the Bible says we should have done. And if we don't measure up, they don't pat you on the back and slide you on in. They say goodbye. My boss I used to work for, he was a tough old dude to work for. We were talking about him the other day. He was hard, but I liked him. He was blunt and to the point, and that's the way I've always been in my job. I've been blunt and to the point, and I just say it the way it is, and there it is. You know, if it's not good enough, we'll fix it. But I don't try to sugarcoat it. Or we had an altar in just here a while back, last week actually, I think last week, and first time I'd ever met him. He was a very nice guy. But I told him when he come in, I said, "Now, Scott, that what you see is what it is. There ain't going to be nothing hid. If you don't like the way it's being done, you can tell me and we can change it. But we're not going to slide nothing. There ain't nothing slid on the rug. It's just what you see right here on the books is all it is. If you don't like what it is, we pass with flying colors. But I said, look, I don't try to sugarcoat it. That's the way my boss was. He was blunt and to the point. And I told you this before, we had a pretty sorry month one month. And when you get on up past the management stage, when you get into the supervision stage, you can leave excuses out in the mailbox. Because don't nobody want them. You can bring all the excuses you want. They ain't going to listen to that very often. They got you there for one reason, that's to make them $1 or more than $1. And they don't listen to excuses too well. Matter of fact, at all. And I called my boss at the end of the month, first start of the next month, and I said, Man, we didn't have too good a month. I got to him early because I knew he'd be calling me early. So I called him before he called me, and I said, we didn't have too good a month. But I said, man, we worked hard, and told him everything, all the efforts we'd put in. He said, Keith, you know, it's a crying shame we don't pay you for effort. He said, we pay you for results. You know what that meant? Hang up the phone and go to work. Get with it. You know, that's the way it's going to be when we get to heaven. We stand before the judgment seat of God. They ain't going to pat you on the back for your effort. If our results don't match up to the Word of God, we can't get in. We just can't get in. There's only two things that he's going to say. Either depart, I never knew you, or welcome in, thy good and faithful servant. There's no middle ground. There's no purgatory to get paid out from. When the bell sounds and our number's punched, it's just that the Bible says ever how the tree falls, that's the way it's going to be. There ain't no changing it from there. Same standard for me, just because my name is Frazier and yours is Gilmore or Rickman or Doles, it ain't going to matter. We got to measure up to the same thing. Now I want to talk to us this morning about being a good and faithful servant. Good and faithful servant. Do you think being good is going to get us in? Just being good. It's not. It's going to take good and faithful servant. Good and faithful. Do you think being faithful is just going to get us in? Most of the time, people will say, yeah, if you're faithful, you're going to get in. I can prove to you that faithful won't get you in. You're going to have to be good and faithful. You've got to be both. The prodigal son, you remember that when the sons came and the dad divided out for their portion, what their portion was of his inheritance. And the prodigal son took his inheritance and went into a far country. You know the story, how he spent everything he had. Well, he wasn't good or faithful. He left. He wasn't good or faithful. He left. But the older brother, was he good and faithful? He was faithful. He was faithful. Because when the son returned home and the dad rolled out the red carpet and killed the fatted calf and put the new garment on him, the ring, the shoes on the younger son, you know what the older boy said? I've been faithful. I've been right here. Hey, you looked around, you needed some help. I was here to help. I was faithful. But he wasn't good. He got mad when the center boy came home. He was not good. So you have got to be good and faithful. What does it take to be good? I think your ways have to please the Lord. Your thinking, your actions, and all must please the Lord. The Bible says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Ordered means they're guided. They're directed. You may be like the turtle. It may be a slow step. It may be a short step. But it's a sure step. Before you make that step, let's make sure that's a good one. Let's make sure we're going in the right direction. The good man is cautious. He may be slower. His steps may be like this turtle. But your course of life has to be governed in a purposeful way that you're always focused on the finish line. Your course of life has to be governed in such a purposeful way that you always have to be focused on the finish line. That can never get out of your sight. Now let me look at a familiar passage that I reference sometimes quite often. I've seen a little something different here. You probably knew this all the time. I hope you didn't. Jesus is speaking, and he likens the kingdom of heaven to a man that devoured out some talents and left. And let's look at that. If we can go to Matthew 25 and 14. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. Notice this sentence, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. The one that didn't get but the 2 talents, he got it because he didn't have the capability of handling 5 talents. The one that got the 1 talent, he got the one because he didn't have the capability of handling the 2 talents. But he had the ability to handle what was given to him. If you'll notice, the Lord divvied those out to every man according to his several ability. That means to his capability, what he was capable of handling. You know, some people you could give $100,000 to, they'll be broke next month. They would. They'll be broke next month. The Lord knows what we're capable of handling. So verse 16 says, then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same and made them 5 other talents. And likewise he that received 2, he also gained 2. But he that had received the 1 went and digged it in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of these servants cometh and reckoned with them. He come to settle up with him. He gave them these talents to go and produce, make some money. That's the reason an investor invests his money. If they invest money in your company, they're expecting a return on your money, on their money. They don't have it just sitting. They can make a little return in the bank, but they choose to invest it with your company and hoping that you'll make them a return on their money. That's what this investor done. He came back and he reckoned with them, and so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents, and behold, I've gained besides them 5 talents more. Notice the response. His Lord said unto him, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. I want you to notice that. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Now here's what I want you to see. You've been faithful over a few things. I've read this a lot of times. I've even taught from it a lot of times. That few things don't mean in number, like 2 or 3 things. It don't mean you've been faithful over 2 or 3 things, so since you were faithful over them 2 or 3 things, I'm going to give you 4 or 5 instead. If you notice, the guy that got the 5 talents, he made 5 more talents. The one that got the 2, he made him 2 more. The one that was unfaithful didn't do anything with his. But what this is actually saying is that you've been faithful. There's a few things that a man has got to be faithful over. It's not the number, like you've got to be faithful over 1 or 2 things, but there are a few things that a man has to conquer, or he's going to never be ruler over anything. There's a few things that we've got to get under our belt as a Christian, as a saint of God. There's a few things that we have to conquer. We have to be on top of. And until we learn to be faithful over these things, he will never make us ruler over anything. Is it odd to you that money was what he used to start with? Does that seem odd to you? Well, it don't to me. Because people will trust the Lord with their soul in eternity and wouldn't trust him with their pocketbook for nothing. See, I don't understand that. I don't understand that mentality. If you're going to trust the Lord with your soul, something that's going to be everlasting and going on for, how in the world can you not trust him with your pocketbook? What you got is so little to what he owns. What we've got is so little to what he owns. Why can't we trust him? That's one thing that you're going to have to learn to be faithful over if you're going to be ruler over anything. I knew it wouldn't be very loud today. But, you know, some things that you have to take dominance over. The amount of the money was not the thing. It's because the guy that got to 2, he was responsible to make 2 more. He was required to do the same thing, double his deal. So it's not the amount. Even the one guy could have been called faithful if he had just brought back 1 more. If he had just doubled what he had. And the Lord gave them what they were capable of handling. Here's the thing about it, folks. We can't get to second base till we touch first base. We ain't going to get to home plate until we cross all the bases. There's a few things that you're going to have to be faithful over. If you're going to score a run in a baseball game, there's a few things you got to be faithful over. You got to get first base, you got to get second, you got to get around third, and you got to get home before you're going to be safe. There's a few things that you've got to have control over. Can I tell you this morning that we cannot make heaven our home if we hadn't been faithful over a few things? One thing is money. We got to learn to get our handle on that. Odd to me that people that have so little money sometimes are so greedy over money. They are. Man was created to be dominant over everything. The Lord gave him dominance. See, the king of the jungle, he's the king as long as he don't get bit by a viper snake. Then he's a dead king. The elephant is the biggest animal in the jungle as long as he don't get attacked by the lion. All of them are subject to something, but God put man dominant over everything. You're in domination. You're the man. You're over everything. But somehow, some way, we have trouble being faithful over a few things. So that's what I want to talk to you about the rest of my time this morning, about those few things. Jesus says in John 12:26, if ye then be not able to do that which is least, why take ye thought for the rest? Boy, that's a good verse. If ye then be not able to do that thing which is least, why take ye thought for the rest? In other words, there's no use of thinking about the big things till we conquer the little thing. But there's a few things that we're going to have to conquer. We're going to have to be faithful over. Google says a person makes 35,000 decisions a day. 35,000 decisions. Your mind is capable of making a lot of decisions in 24 hours. We can choose to be the productive servant, or we can choose to be the one that digs the hole. First of all, stewardship matters to God. Stewardship matters to God. A faithful servant is one that does what he says he'll do. There are untold numbers of people that have lost the confidence. I'm not looking up when I'm saying this, but there are untold numbers of people that have lost confidence in the church and the people that call themselves church people and Christian people because they got beat on paper. That was weak. Let me just tell you, I just want to be straightforward with you. If that's not good enough, Brother Levi he can correct it when he gets up here if he can. But I'm just telling you, if you've got it set out in your mind to beat somebody, I don't care if it's to beat them physically or if you've got it set out in your mind to beat them down on a piece of paper and not pay your obligation that you promised them, you're wrong. You're not going to make it to heaven doing that. You can't. You can't. If a man ain't as good as his word, all liars are going to have their place in the lake of fire. Look here. If you've got an issue, I've run into hard times myself. You say, well, I got laid off. I've been laid off several times during my lifetime. Several times. Right after we got married, I got laid off, and wasn't long after that, Tammy got laid off, or vice versa. Neither one of us working. We didn't have a lot of obligations. It was a good thing we didn't have a lot of obligations. But I've seen times when it looked like it was going to be really thin and didn't look like I was going to be able to make that payment at the time, on the time, timely. I'm talking about when you say you're going to. And I would go in there and say, look, I run into a snag. I didn't make as much money this past week as I thought I would make. Can I have till the next Friday? 99% of the times they're going to say, yes, sir, that's no problem. I'm glad you came in. Well, that's taken care of. No problem. Don't you even worry about it. But if you're intentionally trying to beat somebody out of something, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's not your money. That's their money until you get it all paid back. They didn't drag you in there and make you sign that. They didn't hold a gun to your head and say, come in here and get this and then pay it back. No, you voluntarily went in there. You went in there actually a lot of times begging. And then we have the spirit of, look, I'm running a little tight. Things are running a little tight for me, so I'm just going to skip it. I'll just skip it. And then we skip 2 or 3, and then we start dodging. And then people start changing their phone numbers. Look, I'm not preaching to the church down the road. I'm telling us Christian folks here, we got to take care of our debts. That's one of the things that you've got to learn to be faithful over. You've got to get control over that. Well, that's going over like a sack of rocks. But see, the problem is that people don't want to take responsibility for what they do. That's the reason we got abortion that is rampant in our nation right now. It's because the man and the woman done a deed, and now they don't want to take responsibility for it. You say, well, I need my free choice. I've got free choice. You had your free choice. You made that choice. That's the choice you made. Now you've got to live with the responsibility. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way Christian. Man up. Let's be the man and the Christian person we're supposed to be. Whatever went with the times when a man could walk up to somebody and say, sir, I'm going to do this, and shake hands, and that was a done deal. You can't get a stack of paperwork signed high enough now to get people obligated. I'm telling you from experience. I'm telling you from experience. Blessed is that man whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find him doing. Of a truth I say unto you, that he will make him ruler over all that he hath. But listen to this verse. But, and if that servant say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to beat the men servants and the maidens, and to eat and drink and be drunk, the Lord will come in that day. He looketh not for, and he will cut that servant to sunder, and appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. Then Paul goes on and says, it is required to be good stewards, and that a man be found faithful. Ooh, that's a deep verse right there. Paul said, it is required to be good stewards, and that a man be found faithful. You can't get around being faithful, folks. Brother Jason was talking the other night, was at the house, and just randomly talking about somebody wanting to know what it takes to get up in our pulpit and teach or preach. And I thought Brother Jason gave him a very good answer. He said, the first thing you've got to learn to do is come to church. You got to be here. That's one of the first things you've got to learn. You know, that's one of the few things you've got to be faithful over. When you've got to be at church when the church doors open. You say, well, I can miss. No, that hurts you. That actually hurts you. When you're not here, that hurts you. Luke 16:10 says, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon. Anybody know what that is? Money. Who will commit to your trust their riches? And if ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? Boy, that's a good verse. That's another good one. I'm putting some good ones on you this morning. Remember, there's no runner-up in this race. We've got to win. We got to get it right the first time. No second place, no third place, there's no thing just going to say, that's good enough and let's go on. That's not going to be that way. Let me move on. Everybody say, praise the Lord. Just wanted to know if you're still here or not. It really does amaze me how we can trust the Lord for so many things, but if the Lord responded to us the way we respond to him sometimes, he'd never show up. Just think, if when you were really in need of something and you called on the Lord, and the Lord said, I'm going to be as responsive as you've been. I'm going to be as faithful as you've been to me. I'm going to be as faithful as that to you. We better be glad. That ain't right. He's faithful in all things, the Bible says. He is faithful in all things. It's a good thing that he don't show up as often as, just only as often as we do. I believe a true Christian will be faithful to church. That's part of being accountable. Don't expect God to call us faithful if we ain't been faithful. Hey, you know, God is not going to call us a good and faithful servant if Brother Levi can't call us faithful. If you ask Brother Levi, is so-and-so, are they a faithful member to your church? Well, he's either going to have to tell the truth or he's going to have to lie about you one. He might get forgiveness for that, but God ain't going to lie. If you ain't been faithful, he ain't going to say you faithful. He ain't going to say, come on in. You did the best you could do. I heard that song not too long back. Come on in. You did the best you can do. That's not going to work. I'm a firm believer of either we're all in or we're all out. Brother J.C. Hall used to say, look, you either going to the store or you ain't. In other words, you're either all in or you're all out. There ain't no middle ground. I know I've got to wrap this up pretty quick. You know, if the Bible says that the Lord is a very present help in time of trouble, in time of need. Very present. If every time you needed somebody, they were out of pocket, after a while you'd quit calling them, wouldn't you? You wouldn't call on them anymore. If every time I called Brother Joey and I needed a little help unloading my truck, I got a little something too heavy, I can't lift it out, and he said, well, I'm busy right now, I can't come. And next week I'd need him again, and I called him again, and he said, well, I got something going, I ain't going to be able to come. After 2 or 3 times, I say, well, he just really don't want to help. Reckon the Lord ever thinks that about us? When he calls on us and we don't show, and you ever think after a while he thinks, well, I just don't really know if they in there or not. The Bible said the Lord's a very present help in time of trouble. Faithful servants are faithful and accountable. You know, you couldn't fatten a hog if you didn't feed him no more than some people come to church. You couldn't. He'd die. He'd die of starvation. And then I've done got off on another rant here, but it amazes me how a family could hardly ever show up to church. When they do, just rarely show up, every once in a while. And then their kids grow up and start getting in trouble, and they call on the preacher and think he can pull some kind of rabbit out of the hat and miraculously get their kid off of dope and off of alcohol and save them from jail sentences. And he ain't no miracle worker. You bypassed the miracle worker. You went around him. You thought you could do it all on your own. Look here, we got to be faithful. Do you know your kids is going to see whether you're faithful or not in church? They're always going to do probably a little less than what you do. So it's very important that you do a little more than is necessary. Or they ain't going to do enough that's necessary. They're going to do a little less. Well, let me just finish this up. I believe we need to be faithful to our church. I believe we need to be faithful to our finances. I believe we need to be faithful to our families. I believe we need to be faithful to our job. If we're going to call ourselves Christians, if we're going to be a Christian, then we need to be one, all in. The wise man Solomon says this: confidence in an unfaithful man in the time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. That's a bad situation to be in. Confidence in an unfaithful man, just when you need him the most. When you've got a flat tire and you call your brother and say, hey, man, I got a flat tire. And he says, I got one too. That don't help a whole lot, does it? Confidence in an unfaithful man in the time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. People have changed. The world has changed. But God's word hasn't changed. He still expects us to be what we're supposed to be. He expects us to be real children of God. If there's anything the Bible teaches, you can read it from Genesis to Revelation that talks about being faithful. Keep this in mind today, folks. There's no one runner-up. It's either we win, it's a total win, or it's a total loss. We've got to win at any cost. We've got to win at any cost. I fear many times that we take this word being faithful over a few things as just being faithful over one or two things here and there, where it's not talking about that at all, but it's talking about a few things that you're going to have to be faithful over if you're going to hear him say, well done. You say, well, it was just a little thing. It really didn't matter a whole lot. Well, if it's so little, just go ahead and do it. If it's just a little, Adam, why take a chance on it? Let's just go ahead and do it and be faithful. I want to be counted faithful, don't you? Paul said when he was at the end of his race that I have fought a good fight. I have kept the faith. I finished my course. Therefore is laid up for me a crown of righteousness. And not only for me, he said, but for all those that love his appearing. Now, you're not going to love his appearing if you hadn't been faithful to him. You're going to be shaking in your boots and running for those rocks and mountains to fall on you instead of welcoming him here. I want to be faithful, don't you? I want to be found faithful. I'll tell you this, and I'll quit. I went to, this was back in the mid-90s, I guess. Yeah, mid-90s. I was working as manager in Corinth at the office there, and my boss had got a promotion. I didn't know it, but he'd got a promotion. He was going to the state of Louisiana. So he came up to my office one day, and I knew he'd already been there just weeks before, and I thought, what's he doing back? You don't like to see bosses coming, you know. I said, what's he doing back? Anyway, we finally got around to going out and eating lunch that day, and I just asked him, I said, I know you was just here a few weeks ago. What you doing back? He said, well, I'm fixing to take a promotion. I'm moving to the state of Louisiana, and I want to offer you my position. And I said, well, I knew what his position was. It's over 10 or 12 branches and traveled a lot. And I said, I need to talk to my wife. And he said, that's fine. And he said, I need to know something in an hour. I said, an hour? I said, man, I need a little more time than that. And he said, well, just let me know. Let me know within an hour. So within an hour, I'd done called and we talked about it. And I said, yeah, I told him, I said, yeah, I'll take it. And he said, well, your plane is already booked for in the morning. You're flying out of Memphis early in the morning. Be over there it's like 6:30 in the morning to fly out of Memphis. This happened to be on a Wednesday. So I flew out early Wednesday morning, got up 3:30, 3 o'clock, something or other, drove to Memphis, flew to Dallas, Texas. And we were owned by a company called the Associates out of Dallas, Texas, a huge company. They had a ride waiting on me there and escorted me there to the home office, and you had to have cards to get in. I'm talking about it was like a multi-storied, huge complex building. And we went through, and first guy I met, I thought, man, this is going to be something else. I don't know if I'm up to this. I was shaking, man. I ain't never been out of Corinth hardly. And done an interview, and he said, well, you've got 5 more interviews to go through. I thought, take this job. I got 5 more. I don't know if I want this or not. I don't know if this is worth it. But anyway, long story short, I went through 5 interviews that day with different people. And I mean, they knew your background. They knew your stuff. They knew your numbers. So there wasn't nothing to hide. They wanted to see how you was going to handle a little pressure. And they'd put a little pressure on you. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. They asked you some pretty tough questions. Well, I got out of that associate meeting, and my ride was waiting to take me back to the airport. So I went back and got on the airplane, and I got back into Memphis at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. Normally, people that have been going since 3 o'clock, went through 5 interviews and already been to Dallas, Texas all day long, was that I can't wait till I get home and get stretched out in my recliner. You know what I done? I got off the plane and I ran to my car. I said, I have got to make Wednesday night service. You say, it's Wednesday night. Everybody skips a Wednesday night occasionally. Somehow or another, I just couldn't skip Wednesday night. I had to be faithful to the house of God. I had always been taught to be faithful. If there was enough time, I was going to make it. I would have got pulled over for speeding several times coming in from Memphis. But I drove up here about 2 minutes till 7, was in church on Wednesday night. I'm not pinning no roses on me. I'm just telling you how much I think that a person has to be faithful. If you look, like Brother Hall said, we're either going to town or we ain't. We're either in or we're out. Let's be 100% faithful, folks. 100%. Over a few things. We got to get faithful over a few things, or we're not going to make it. Let's give the Lord a big hand for His word today.